the really, really good games, the ones that we actually want to put in the Video Game Hall of Fame, often themselves become cultures. What I want to do with the few games that I've left to make before I get too old to program games is just make some really, really good games, like really, really good games, right? Figure out that part. That's actually hard on its own. When you're married to somebody, you have to compromise and you can't, just go off on any whim you want. You have to kind of work together. But would you want to explore it all alone? I don't think you would.
I always in the beginning ask for background people. Like, how did you start programming and game development? You've been doing like games for years now, back in the day.
Yes.
Tell me, how did it start for you?
Well, I started off just as a programmer. I studied computer science when I was in college and got a computer science degree. And of course, in college, in computer science, they don't really teach you how to be a good programmer. And then I worked some summer jobs and so on. When I was programming full time, I learned to be a slightly better programmer. And then I was just kind of working on my own projects at first that weren't game related, right? So I was doing like peer-to-peer software and other types of things like this. Like, I don't know, this was back in the day when like Napster was a thing. And there were these big lawsuits happening where the recording industry in America was suing individual people for downloading stuff. And so I was really interested in that sort of copyright issue or public domain kind of stuff and trying to make software that helps people avoid getting caught by the copyright police. So that's the first things I was programming, with these sort of distributed systems and online type things like that. And then at some point I felt like I was getting to be a pretty good programmer, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm a good enough programmer now to finally make a game, because I kind of always felt like games were pretty complicated systems and required so much breadth, right? You have to have audio programming and video programming and interactivity programming and so on. And so then sometime I'd been programming for about 8 years, I think, when I worked on my very first game, which was just this tiny little kind of experimental art project type thing. And it's actually pretty cool. Actually, one of the things that I'm most proud of in my whole programming career is that a number of those early games that I made are actually part of the Debian repository, because they were open source games. And back then I was posting them on SourceForge. And so like I can do like an apt-get install transcend, for example, which is the very, very first game that I made back in like 2003 or 2004. And it just appears right in the games menu in Debian. So I guess I have something for posterity there after I'm gone. Maybe my games will still be part of Debian. But it's also cool that those games from that long ago, like 22 years ago, still compile. They still compile on the latest Linux and so on. And as long as they keep old SDL 1.2 going, I guess they'll still be playable for a long time. But in preparation for this podcast, for example, I was like, oh, I better get some of my games installed, and I just like apt-get installed them on Debian. There they were.
Hi everyone. Let me take a break to thank members of the show who made this conversation possible. Members get earlier access to videos, including longer unedited footage from live streams, as well as they're invited to our private Discord server. If you want to support the show, there is no better way than becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I guess I could show you the very first thing I made, because I did install it on here. You're seeing my screen now, correct?
Yes.
So here are the Debian menu. Right here is Transcend. Oh, and look, I guess I also was testing SuperTux too at some point. There aren't very many games on Linux, especially native games. And so I think that's why people are so excited about putting anything that's available for Linux and actually works on Linux, they like want to support and maintain the package for. Transcend, which we're talking about here, I guess I was sort of inspired by these simple arcade games that were sort of interesting on their own without flashy graphics and things. And I was doing a lot of procedurally generated graphics. So I don't know if we can see here, like all this stuff. There were no sprites in this game. This was all these like abstract. Let's see, is it the G key? I think the G key to pick things up. Oh, is that not working? No, it's the D key to pick things up. So all these things are these vector things made out of polygons and colors and things. Space to shoot, yeah. So it allows for this kind of crazy smooth morphing between these shapes. I mean, I still don't really see a lot of things that, oops, I'm not strong enough. Well, you have to gather these things from the outside and bring them into the center to make yourself stronger. Meanwhile, these little enemies are flying around trying to knock the things that you have put in the center out to make you weaker again. And as you bring these things to the center, there's this procedural music that's playing, so you're also making this kind of composition of music as you assemble these things in the center. And see that like bar that's scrolling across, that's actually like the time bar in the music. So if I bring a couple more pieces over here.
The colored one?
And put them in.
Colored one?
Yeah, there's this color bar that's kind of red. It's a very thin bar that's scrolling across. And so it scrolls across and it's playing the music from each piece that I'm dropping in here, which each piece has like a melody associated with it.
Wow. Okay.
So as you assemble them, if I put them stacked up vertically like this, then they'll play at the same time. And if I put them in order, then they play in time. So these two pieces are now playing kind of in concert with each other. And so you can see my bullets are getting stronger and stronger because I've built, the bullets are getting bigger, which means they're more powerful. So there's all this kind of like morphing graphics and stuff that was possible with everything being these geometric shapes. And then once I get strong enough by building up enough of this stuff and defending the stuff in the center, then I can finally go after this boss that's flying around the outside of the level. But you can see as I shoot him, he like changes shapes in pretty dramatic ways.
What is happening with the camera? So camera is like zooming in and zooming out. Is it when you move?
When you're moving slow, it gives you this kind of close-up view so you can see the details of everything. But when you start to speed up, it like zooms out. Basically, as you're going faster and faster, it zooms out so you can see where you're going.
Okay. And
then I didn't want it to be zoomed out the whole time because I wanted you to see my beautiful graphics up close, you know?
Exactly. Nice.
So anyway, I'll just destroy this guy here because I'm getting strong enough to kill him, I think. And he really knocks you back when he hits you. And you can see he changes shape like crazy. And then he makes this like big portal that you can go through onto the next level.
Nice.
And then there's only 3 levels. Each level looks pretty different. And all the enemies are different shapes, and even your little guy is a different shape in each level. It's like where's the boss over here? He's a totally different kind of thing here. But yeah, I guess looking at this now, all these years later, I don't really see any games that look like this. So I guess I was onto something, at least in terms of it being unique. You know, in terms of like these morphing geometric shapes that are possible. If you're just saying like in OpenGL, you're just doing like, I guess there was a draw line that I was invoking, and then also of course drawing triangles, right? And picking the colors of the vertices of the triangles so that there's these smooth blends of colors across everything, and then morphing one shape into another. And so I had this pretty complicated morphing algorithm where even if shapes had different numbers of vertices, they would slowly add vertices as they transitioned across the timeline to change smoothly into the other shape. So all that stuff works pretty well.
Was it before concept of a health bar and like health for player? Because you don't see.
I decided not to do that because I was like, your health here is kind of represented by if you get hit, so you don't die. I was like, what if you don't die? Actually, that's been a theme throughout all my games, right? It's like you don't. From most of my games, there's not this idea of like, oh, you're getting hearts and you get your hearts knocked off or something. And so in this game, what happens when you get hit is you get pushed back to the center, kind of knocked away from what you're trying to do. So, and then also if you let these guys build up, like if you let them get too close to the center, they come after you if they can. But once you put some stuff in the center here, which is where you're building up your power-ups, then they come and try to attack that stuff. If they can't hit you, they're coming to try. So you can be out here like gathering stuff and be really far away from everything, not really paying attention, and then you'll see eventually these guys fly in and start destroying the stuff that you've been building, and they knock it all back out. So they're kind of picking at your construction here. So I'll show you in a second. They'll look at there. So they're coming here, and they're going to start shooting those things in the center. And once they do, they knock them and they kind of push them back out and where they stop working. So that's the mechanic is you're kind of going up this hill and they're trying to knock you back down the hill, basically. There's no health, there's no damage, anything like that. It's just about getting pushed in different directions where you don't want to be. And they'll keep chasing those things down and push them all the way back out to the border. So then you got to bring them back in again. That's how difficult. I mean, it is a somewhat difficult game, even especially on the next level. I think there's even more enemies or something, and so it becomes this really kind of tense. Like, they keep knocking my stuff away. By the time I get anything to the center, they've already knocked the other ones away again. They move a little faster and stuff.
When was it? When was it to develop this?
So this was 2004, I think, or 2003. And I probably spent, a few months on it. And, I guess I pitched it on the website when I put it out. I was like, this is like not just a video game. This is an interactive audio and visual sculpture or something.
Experience.
So I was,
nice.
I was kind of pretentious about it, I guess, back then.
When was the peak or like the birth of like indie scene?
So this was kind of before that.
It's like 2007.
It's like there was no Steam. not a Steam that existed in some form for Valve to just deliver its own games, but I don't even think that existed yet. So there's definitely no stores where you could go and sell your games. And so I was just putting this on my own website, and it was free. And I think there were a couple examples that came in the next few years of like some indie person putting a game on their own website and selling it. And of course, you had to use some kind of third-party payment processor, like FastSpring is the one that I actually started using back then and still use to this day. I think there was like an Edmund McMillan game called Gish. And there was also like Derek Yu and somebody else made a game called, Aquaria. So these were these really, really early indie games that were not on Steam because Steam didn't exist for selling games. And then people were selling them on their own websites. And I don't know how well they were really doing financially. So it wasn't even something I thought of at the time. Like, I'm going to sell a game. Like, there wasn't really a venue for it. And it was after I saw a couple of my friends and colleagues having some luck selling games on their own website that I finally put a game up on my own website and tried selling it, which was Sleep is Death, which is this 2-player storytelling game. And that was in 2010. So that's like 6 years later, right? Yeah. And there was, I think Steam might not have even existed right when Sleep is Death came out. Maybe it had existed for like a year or something. And then I was asking, I think Steam approached me and was like, hey, we'd like you to put Sleep is Death on Steam. It looks like a cool game. And I was talking to them about it and kind of getting ready to put it on Steam. You had to be invited back then. And then the person I was talking to at Valve left.
Oh, no.
And I kind of lost contact with Valve. And then I got in touch with somebody new like a few months later. I was like, okay, who took over for this person? And they put me in touch with the person who took over for them. And then like 3 months later, they were like, we've changed our mind.
Oh,
we don't want Sleep. So Sleep is Death never made it on Steam. I guess back in those early days, I don't know how much success people were having with games on Steam back then, so early. But eventually, my second commercial game, Inside of Starfield Sky, did get on Steam. But I really had to work hard and pull connections and talk to other friends who knew somebody at Valve. It was the only game that came out on Steam that day. And they juggled my release date at one point because they had some other game coming out and they didn't want my game coming out on the same day.
Imagine.
I was like, no, not Tuesday morning.
Imagine today, I think it's like 100 a day.
Hundreds. Oh, yeah, depending on the day, yeah. And so, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I was on the front page of Steam with Inside of Starfield Sky.
The fact that you developed the games on Linux, like, already puts you in a very small niche category. Developers.
Well, it's so much nicer. Like, for one thing, you have a terminal that actually is good. like the DOS shell is just terrible. And the scripting language, just even having like a real scripting language at the shell to write like scripts that do a little bit more complicated things and stuff, or just like having a compiler kind of built in that you don't have to download this huge like Leviathan of like Visual Studio or something to get a compiler going. So this game was my first game that was actually on Steam, and Valve accepted it finally after a bit of arm twisting from me and like pulling connections with people I knew who had games on Steam to connect me with people at Valve. It was the only game that came out. It was on the front page of Steam for like a full week as it slowly worked its way down the new release list. And Valve was so hands-on back then that they actually redid the artwork.
What? With
some internal artist at Valve for my Steam store page. All the art assets, like the banners and other things. I had submitted stuff I thought was cool, and they were like, this is not good enough. And they redid it. And that artwork is still up there to this day. And I kind of like my old artwork better, but they were probably right. Looking at it now, it's like, my artwork that I had made was very, very strange.
The game
and
is
very
strange.
hard to visually understand.
The game is strange.
Yeah, it's a very strange game. Yeah, so this is a game, and it's the only game of its kind that I'm aware of, except maybe it was sort of inspired by Disgaea, which is like a tactical, turn-based kind of Final Fantasy Tactics type game that was on PlayStation 2. But this game is recursive in that you're this little guy and you're running around this maze and you're shooting. So when I come up out of that level, I find myself that I was actually inside myself there. And so I'm rising up through different versions of myself. As I gather these yellow power-ups, then they upgrade the guy that I'm inside of. They don't upgrade me. So all these power-ups that I'm gathering here go up into the guy that I'm inside. Go up into the guy that I'm inside of. So he's picking up like speed and long-distance bullets, but I don't get those things until after I rise up and become him. So I'm rising up, and now I was actually inside a level inside of him before, and then. So now I'm using those things. But anyway, the general idea is that there's levels inside everything. So there's a level inside every power-up, and there's monsters inside that level, and you can go down inside those, and you'll find a level inside each of those things. And you're rising up through an infinite chain of levels, and so there's might be 20 monsters inside every level that you need to kill. Some of the monsters are too hard to kill. You can go down inside of them and weaken them from the inside by changing what power-ups they have and so on. And then eventually rise back up and fight a weaker monster and so on. But there's an infinite tree of levels going down through every possible. Every level has 20 power-ups, 20 monsters in it that each have an infinite tree of levels below them. So you can recurse as deep as you want. You can go like I think you can go like 2 billion levels deep if you want. Deep, and things get harder and harder the deeper that you go. And then you can build up, even if you go inside yourself or inside power-ups, you can combine power-ups to make the power-ups stronger and then rise back up and pick them up. So you can kind of do this kind of exponential thing where you dig down in power-ups and combine power-ups to make them twice as strong, and then rise back up and combine those twice as strong powers to make it even like 4 times stronger power-up, and then pick that up. So you can eventually get these like kind of crazy combos of long-distance heat-seeking bouncing bullets that go around corners and chase down enemies and everything. So that stuff is really cool. I wish I could demonstrate it better than I can right now.
Can you go infinitely?
But yeah, so this game...
Can you go infinitely inside yourself?
You can't go... Well, yes, you can go... I think it's using 32-bit numbers.
I mean, that's fine. Like I don't distinguish.
Yeah. So you can go 2 billion levels deep. You can go 2 billion levels deep inside yourself, and you eventually hit the upper mystery in the game when you go 2 billion levels high, right? Because it's using positive and negative numbers. Yeah. So, and that game, sold all right on my own website, and then it sold all right on Steam. I spent 6 or 7 months making that game. It brought in $40,000 on my website and $80,000 on Steam. I don't know what the total was, but I think grand total wasn't even that much. Grand total was not more than $100,000, but it definitely felt like a big success for me as an individual developer who had made it by myself back in those days. And we got to remember how much inflation has affected things. Since those days, we've had like in the United States, the dollar's worth 3 times less than what it was back then. So, that's like one guy working for 7 months and making a game that made like, $250,000 or something in today's money.
That's not bad, That's quite good.
It was enough to support my family and stuff for a while and support me while I continued working on more games and stuff. But yeah, before I did that, I was, making these little free games, some of which Transcend was one of them. And then my most famous game is Passage, which I could pull up here. It's part of Debian as well. So this game was made for a little competition that was, we were meant to make a game that was really low resolution. No bigger than 256 by 256 was the rules. And they were encouraging even smaller, if you could, and weird aspect ratios was one of the things they were encouraging. Passage, I think, is 12 pixels tall and something like 100 pixels wide, something like that. And so I was interested in like, okay, if I'm going to do this weird aspect ratio game, like how could I use that shape in an interesting way? And so in this game, you're this little guy who's walking along, and there's this maze. If you go to the south, all these blocks that you can explore, and there's treasure chests down here somewhere if I can find one of them. But you have very limited up and down view of where you're going. You kind of are surprised by the walls. Oh, there's a treasure chest there. So when you hit a treasure chest, most of them have moths in them. They're empty. Every once in a while, you'll find one with a blue star in it. And there's a way you can kind of learn. There's little colored dots on the front of them that you can sort of learn the patterns over time throughout your game to see if you can figure out which ones have a blue star. But you can see all that stuff shimmering off to the right there.
Yeah.
That's like the whole future area that I can potentially explore. And it's all being done with this kind of like visual compression that's happening. So I'm kind of sampling out into the full landscape that goes off into infinity over there and kind of showing you samples. Actually, I think they're a little bit anti-alias samples. You can see that the lines aren't solid gray there. They kind of turn pale. So I think I'm double sampling it or something. And then, but you can also come up here to the top. And then, this is what makes Passage tick, is that up here at the top, there's this woman that you can meet up with here. And you guys get joined, and then you can walk along together.
Nice.
In which case you get double points for exploring further to the right than you've ever explored. I've already explored a little bit here, so I'm not getting them yet, but as soon as I get past the point I walked before, you can see I'm getting 2 points per tile, where I used to only get 1. But then when we come down here into the maze trying to get those treasure chests, you'll find that it's much harder to navigate the maze because you guys are twice as wide as you used to be. So there's actually certain treasure chests that you can't even get. I can't go down any further. If I was a single guy walking alone, I'd easily be able to get down here. But because I have her along with me, and
what's the lesson, Jackson? What's the lesson?
Well, when you're married to somebody, you have to compromise, and you can't just go off on any whim you want. You have to kind of work together, and there's trade-offs.
And they're getting older.
And they're getting older, right? And so eventually, this game only lasts 5 minutes, and you can guess what's happening as they get closer and closer to the right edge of the screen. They also can't see as much off to the right. They can't see as much of their future anymore, like what's coming up ahead. But look at the hazy, sampled stuff going on in the past back there. So you can see kind of like you have all these memories building up. And you start getting all these kind of moire patterns forming and stuff back there. So, of course, as you reach the right edge of your screen, that means the end of your life is coming. I was trying to make this memento mori game. I was kind of looking at making games that had kind of reached further artistically or something. And then I was like, okay, well, what are some of the things that like paintings or movies or something do? And there's this whole genre of paintings that are called memento mori, which is about facing death and grappling with death and so on. And I was like, there's never even been a game like this. Like, we're trying to like expand this medium and figure out how to say things in this medium, and there's never been a memento mori game before. So yeah, she reached the right edge of the screen before I did, and now she's dead. And so that's the other trade-off here, is that once she dies, you get really slow and sad. So you can't. If you had a single life and never picked her up, you'd be able to explore quite a bit further and stay pretty fast throughout your whole life. But would you want to explore it all alone? I don't think you would.
So many lessons packed in so few pixels.
So that's Passage there. All 5 minutes of it. Now, I remember this was at the Gamma 256 event. It was in Montreal. Phil Fish, who's the guy who made Fez, and Heather Kelly and Cindy Paremba, I think her name was. And there was one other guy, I can't remember his name now, it's been so long, but they had this little art collective up in Montreal of game-making artists, and they were throwing these parties at MIGS, which was kind of the Canadian version of GDC. It's the Montreal International Game Summit. And so they put out this call for submissions, and then they were selecting games, and there were something like 10 or 15 games that they selected, and they put them up on projectors around this kind of party space at a club. And I remember standing there back then, this was the first time I met him, watching Jonathan Blow play Passage. And he was like, this is kind of interesting. So that's one memory I have of early days of the indie scene. Phil Fish running around there. I think Jonathan Blow was speaking at the Montreal International Game Summit, and I think I was like a water boy. I was like a volunteer, like running to get things and getting cable connectors for people who were speaking and stuff.
Daniel Ben-Mergi was there already? Or was it later?
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't think Daniel was making games at that point. I think this was before he had started. Okay. He might have come there. Yeah, I mean, the Montreal International Game Summit kept going for a number of years. Eventually, I was a speaker there. But, in the early days, it was like, how do I go to this conference? I'll be a volunteer.
I'll do anything.
And so, yeah. Passage is 5 minutes long. I never even thought about trying to sell it. And actually, if you look at statistics, I think it's been downloaded and played, like 600,000 times or something, right? And it's like, oh, that's actually, according to players, that's the biggest game I ever made, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, because once you start charging money for things, the audience kind of shrinks, right? And so, but of course, I wouldn't charge money for a 5 minute game anyway. It wouldn't even make sense. And there was a lot of debate back then about whether games could be art. People were pestering Roger Ebert, who was the film critic in the United States at the time, he had written a couple of essays about how video games would never be art, and he would never play video games because they were a waste of time compared to film and so on. And then people kept pestering him and bothering him and sending him examples of games to play and so on. And at one point, somebody convinced him that he should look at the game Passage.
No way.
And he'd never played Passage, though, but he watched a 5 minute video of somebody else playing. So before Ebert died, he at least was exposed to Passage. And I think he just kind of dismissed it as like, this is the best you guys can do. I'm watching Citizen Kane again tonight. I'm not going to play Passage.
I read his essay when I was in university. And he was like very confident that the games will never be art.
And he, in a lot of ways, looking back at it now, he might have been right in some ways that we weren't really ready to grapple with. This is a pretty important topic because it's like we're talking about video games and where they sit in culture and what kinds of artifacts they really are and how we engage with them. And they are fundamentally, I think, especially the really, really good games, are fundamentally different in the way that they operate from movies and books and music and other things like that. Sculptures and paintings and poetry. The really, really good games, the ones that we actually want to put in the Video Game Hall of Fame, often themselves become cultures, right? Like 1 Hour in Life is a good example of this, where it's like there are people who have played 1 Hour in Life almost every day for like 8 years, right? And there's people who are on the Discord server, they're talking about it, they're playing, they're whatever. They just basically, it becomes this sort of like, the video game is almost like a clubhouse or something, or a city, or an identity or something like that.
But you're saying that like for art cannot be like that?
Maybe it's a different kind of art, but the other thing about it is that you give up this authorial control, right? Like as an author, the whole point of video game, and at least especially the really good ones, is that the player can kind of do all these different things inside the game, right? That's what makes it a video game. That's what makes it interesting. And the games that were trying to fight against that, and Passage is in some ways part of this, the movement of like, oh, can we do authored, artistically evocative things with games? Most of those games are not that interactive, right? And there's like Passage is so hemmed in. You can walk up, down, left, and right, and that's the only input, right? You can't really do anything else. You can't pick anything up. You can't destroy anything. You can't, interact with the world in very many ways. And so that allows it to kind of be this vessel for some kind of message, or you can't goof around in Passage too much, right? You're sort of limited to doing what I want you to do within the game. But in the more open-ended games that are really, really deeply interactive, there's just so much opportunity for the player to do things that completely subvert what the game is supposed to be about, right? Running around breaking all the furniture or whatever they want to do, right? And it's like, well, yeah, they can make it goofy if they want, right? And so then, well, it just becomes this goofy kind of thing. And so I think that's one side of it, especially if you're trying to do kind of story type things. But games aren't really at their strongest when they're doing that kind of authored story stuff anyway. And then the other side is the games that don't have stories, and those are the ones I think are the most interesting, right? The things where it's like these systems that you're exploring, and these emergent mechanics, and these deep, beautiful things, and these things that can obsess the human mind, right? Like Balatro or something like this, right? Or even chess, right? Those games that can obsess the human mind are some of I think the best examples of games. And I think that obsession that we experience when we play them, and that busy mind, really kind of almost prevent them from doing the kinds of things that art normally does to people, right? Brian Moriarty, who's a professor here in the United States, gave a talk one time where he mentioned, one of the things art does is create the still evocation of the ineffable, is what he said. Basically, the sublime, the things that can't be put into words, the things that make you quietly sit with the universe for a second and say, wow. And he said that basically when we're playing a game, our minds are so busy, so focused, so engrossed, especially the really good ones, right? That there's not really room for us to have that quiet, feeling of awe very often. And so I think, someone like Jonathan Blow is trying really, really hard to build game systems that have room for that. And I think he succeeds quite often, but then it's like, are these sort of, kind of majestic puzzle games the only thing that can really do that, right? I don't feel that when I'm playing Balatro or Factorio. I feel like Balatro and Factorio are more compelling and maybe better games than, majestic puzzle games. As much as I, love Jonathan Blow and his work and so on, and admire him and respect him deeply, I think I no longer really feel like I'm trying to do that as much. 1 Hour in Life came closest. There's this whole idea of like, well, how do you get these human emotions and all these things in a game, and how do you do that in a game native way without just having like pre-scripted characters talking on the screen in like a little cutscene or a movie in the middle of the game? 1 Hour in Life kind of does that for the most part. It's like you say goodbye to your dying grandmother in 1 Hour in Life, and you actually feel sad when it's happening, and it's not a scripted cutscene. It's like these other actual humans controlling the other characters, and they are all motivated by the mechanics to behave in certain ways. And so that works, but the people who have played 1 Hour in Life for 7,000 hours have worn that out so much that they don't even feel it anymore, right? Like they've said goodbye to their dying grandmother thousands of times. Literally. And maybe there's still a little, twinge there maybe, but like the sort of payload is so diffused and so, just worn out that people who are really playing 1 Hour in Life deeply are no longer engaging with it in this sort of artistic human condition kind of ways anymore, right? They're engaging with it as its systems and so on, and figuring out how to make things happen and figuring out how to counteract other players in the game who are doing certain things. I guess I feel like at this point in my career, I'm 48 years old, and like what I want to do with the few games that I've left to make before I get too old to program games is just make some really, really good games, like really, really good games, right? Figure out that part. That's actually hard on its own. And maybe the art stuff is kind of an excuse or distraction. It doesn't have to be good if it's making like, you know, it's an art experience, right? You can avoid having to actually do the hard work of making a really good game.
Between Passage and 1 Hour 1 Life, there's a couple of games that I want to touch on. The first game would be the Castle Doctrine. Do you have, because you have them very chronologically listed, do you want to mention other games in between before we get to the Castle Doctrine?
Yeah, I mean, there were a whole bunch of other small, really tiny games along the way, right? And so games that were kind of, there's another game called Gravitation that was kind of in the same realm as Passage, but it was like, hey, it's kind of like Passage, except it's, you know, it's about a different topic, you know, it's exploring something else. So this game it's not a tiny little weird aspect ratio, it's a big square screen. Oh, by the way, yeah, the guy in Passage is me, and the guy in Gravitation here is me as well. And this little character over here is my son Mez, who's now 23 years old, but he was like 4 when I made this game. And so, you know, you're playing ball with him here, and there's some unusual stuff in this game, right? There's this view that's changing size, and the background is actually changing as well. So you play ball with him down here, and eventually you get to the point where you get kind of charged up, your view is getting bigger and bigger, and you see there's a star up there. I think I got one more, and then I'm gonna have it happen. So now I've like fully charged up, and I can actually jump really high up here and get all this stuff.
Dang.
But before I could only jump like, you know, a couple inches high, right? It's like every time I get one of these stars, I get charged up again, and the view expands again. But then it shrinks really fast.
No.
Now I can't even jump anymore.
No.
Like I can only jump this high, right? So now if I travel all the way back down here, I picked up all these ideas up in the stratosphere when I was on this crazy.
There's no checkpoint.
And now I got to push them in to actually make something happen out of them. So I get points for each one that I push in successfully. That was like 6 points. But they pile up down here, and I can't even like actually play ball with my kid right now because there's so many things piled up. And the more they get piled up in a big train like this, the harder they are to push. They're losing value as they sit down here.
See, that's almost Sokoban. That's almost majestic puzzle game. Block pushing.
Yeah, I can't pull them. I can only push them. I never even thought about it. I had never played Sokoban until like last week. And I went back and played the one from like 1982. And I was like, wow, these puzzles. I mean, obviously it's a groundbreaking game, but the puzzles are not good puzzles. I was like, John, you've definitely made Sokoban better. Anyway, so this is Gravitation. Again, a very low resolution game, a very autobiographical game, exploring. Basically, I was trying to come up with like these new mechanics that had never been in the game before, and like kind of stitch them together into this sort of manifold of mechanics that all kind of interact with each other. Like playing ball with the kid, your jumping height, the ability to collect things, how they pile up, and you can actually play this game in kind of an game optimizing fashion to try and get the highest score possible in the 309 seconds you have left. You see that number ticking down there. And when you do that, you actually are kind of balancing all of these different. So this is one where if you play optimally, you actually are almost like playing out the metaphorical meaning of all the mechanics is brought to bear even better when you're playing the game super optimally. Like one of the things you end up doing if you're playing super optimally is like pushing blocks into the thing to get their points while playing ball with your kid, like jumping back and forth between the two tasks, right?
Okay.
You know, and as a parent, you do that all the time. If you're a working parent trying to do some creative project or something, you're busy working on your thing, you're all focused, and your kid comes in and needs something when they're little. You're like, yeah, you're kind of like playing with your kid with one hand while like trying to finish the work with the other hand, essentially. And so, you know, if you're playing very optimally, you're tightly managing your moods, you're tightly only getting exactly the right amount of creative projects up in the stratosphere and bringing them down, and then playing ball with your kid as you finish them. I guess this is an example of that kind of stuff. Like if someone plays this game deeply and really gets good at it, they're not subverting the artistic meaning, right? But again, the controls are so simple, there's not much you can do here. It's not like, you know, like Minecraft or something where you could come and like chop this kiln down and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
So I can switch back to this now. So I made a bunch of little games that were like that, experimenting with mechanics. There was a magazine back in the day called The Escapist online, and they actually hired me at $200 per game to make a series of games, one each month. So I was getting $250 or $200 from them. And I made the series of little sketch games, which each one explored different mechanics. Those were all made in Game Maker because I was only spending a week on each one because I was getting paid so little money to make them. And they don't run on Linux. they barely run on Windows anymore. So I can't show those. And then, so you were talking about the Castle Doctrine.
Yeah.
Before that was Sleep is Death, which is this 2-player storytelling game.
What was the premise? What was the premise for the Sleep is Death?
Yeah, let me quickly show that. Sleep is Death is a 2-player game where one player is controlling the main character in the story, and the other player is controlling everything else in the game world. All the other characters, all the objects, the scenes, the props, what every other character says, and so on. And so it's a game played over turns. Each player has 30 seconds to make their move. The main character goes and says something, does something, and so on, attempts to do something. And then the person controlling the world has 30 seconds to make the world react and make the characters react to what that person did. And then it's the other person's turn again to decide what to do next. And so it allows for these completely open-ended, crazy, interactive worlds where you can do things that the person who kind of designed the story world wasn't even expecting, right? Like go and light something on fire that they weren't expecting. And they have an editor that allows them, because it's low resolution pixel art, to make kind of anything happen, right? You can quickly set something on fire or change scenes if someone walks out the door unexpectedly or whatever happens, and kind of try to keep the story going in the direction that the main character wants to go. So there's basically there's no rails necessarily, as long as the human who's controlling the thing can keep up. So I can just host a game, and then I'll join the game without waiting for somebody else to join. So there's this crazy editor that I came up with in this game. This is the interface that the person controlling the world is actually seeing. And so they can pick up any object, move it around. They can also go in and edit the room itself, like in real time, like, oh, I need to put some different tiles down here. Like we need carpet or stone over here. And like, oh, there's a grassy patio out here because he walked out the door.
Tile editor.
How do I get out?
Tile editor included.
How do I get out? Okay, so now I added this grassy patio over here to the room, right? And I said, oh, actually, I want that chair to be out on the patio, right? And so then this is the main character, the one with the red arrow. So the player is going to be in control of this person, and then I can also put other characters in here. Like, I don't know if I have, a wife? Lauren is in here, my wife, Lauren. Okay, I'll put her in. So how do I add her? I drag her. Oh, there we go. So she's a non-player character that the other player can't control. And I can control her, though, and I can make her say something like, and then I can also control there's a way I can control the anchor. Yeah, so I can control where the speech bubble is positioned. So normally I'd get this scene together. Oh, and I can also make the telephone is over here. I could click, oops, and that's not what I do. I want to, I need to turn that off. Okay, there we go. So now I'm on the phone, and I can actually say the phone's going to ring, but I can actually switch that to a box because it's supposed to be not a speech bubble,
nice.
Right?
So
normally I'd have a 30-second timer going down here telling me oh, you're running out of time to get this going. I could practice against the timer, though. So I could see this timer's counting down, and then if I hit go, I'll see it from the other player's perspective. So this is what they're seeing, and they have the ability to move the character around. See, the time is counting, so they only have 30 seconds to do this. And then you can also point an arrow at something like this and say, it's like an action, right? You're going to answer the phone.
Wow.
So then let's say I submit my move to the guy. He's on the other end, and he'll see this. He's like, oh, the guy's trying to answer the phone. Okay. And then I'll quickly have the phone say something now because I could flip the speech bubble and say, hello. I think I found your dog. Right? Okay, now I go back to him.
Is this the first?
And he says, oh, this is what the person on the phone is saying. They think I found your dog. And then I'll say, don't worry, I'm coming to get him. And then I'm going to go out, right? I'm going to say, tell him I want to exit. And send with the move. Okay, so now I see that he wants to exit. So now I quickly find another scene, which is field. Okay. Let's say he went outside and now he's here. He's here. And I got to make sure he's the right character. It looks like he changed characters too. Anyway. But anyway, let's say he changed characters. And it's so I send this to him. And then he's looking for his dog. And so he can be hey, Fido. So he's running around looking for his dog. Oops, that speech bubble's not in the right spot, but I would have fixed that as the guy if I was doing a better job. I'll move that speech bubble here. And then I can have the dog come in now. Dog. There he is. All right. And move him and put a speech bubble on him.
Is this the first like D&D creation tabletop like virtual digital version?
Well, I mean, obviously there's all kinds of computer role-playing games, right? But those are so focused on, this mechanics and stats and rolling dice. Not really, they don't show you rolling dice, but, all that stuff. This was like, and some people do play D&D this way where they kind of get rid of all of those mechanical systems and they just like, it's this kind of interactive storytelling thing. But yeah, so I don't know this was in 2010, so it's 16 years old. I don't know. There hadn't been anything like it before, and I don't think there's been anything like it since. Yeah, so, you can also, there's kind of crazy stuff in here. Of course, you can edit every scene, so I can go into, the scene editor and, of course, move these trees. I think I can, I want to stop. Okay, so, I can pick any of these scenes. I can go into the room editor. Oh, that's the room, actually. There's actually trees in this level that I can actually move around, but they're locked. So I can unlock them, and then I see I can actually move the individual trees around, right? Because they're all individual objects. So if somebody came and chopped down one of the trees, I could quickly make it look like it was getting chopped down. But there's also this crazy music editor in here with, I don't know if you can hear it. It's pretty quiet.
I do.
Can you hear that at all?
I do.
So anyway, you can quickly rearrange a song or add new melodies in here and so on to change the tension of the music in a given scene. So and then you can go in and God, what is it? You can edit the phrases. So there's this tone matrix for editing the phrases, and then there's also something in here where there's a timbre. Oh, is this it? Yeah, this is the scale. So you can switch scales from major to minor and so on. There's all these scales in here, like pentatonic minor, natural minor, and so on. And then music will just all switch scale, right? So you can take a whole composition and just switch what scale it is. Oh yeah, each track has its own timbre here. And so I can go in and edit the harmonics in the timbre to change the way the sound is. And these are the attack, sustain, and release time for each note. So it's pretty elaborate. And I think I did this whole thing in 6 months. And then, this was extremely popular back when it came out. I was selling it on my own website. It wasn't on Steam, but there was this whole community of people who started telling stories, and there were all these couple of different third-party websites. Because when you tell a story in this, it also saves a flip book to your hard drive as a series of PNGs with a little HTML thing to hook it together. So you can put it up on a website and let people page through the story and see what the results were. And so there was a couple of different websites where people are sharing stories. There's a way to export. You can select certain assets. You can say, I add scene to the resource pack and pick different scenes and keep adding them to the resource pack. And then eventually you can save it and export it as this bundle that other people can import. So when you create assets, you can make a pack of assets, like a science fiction pack, and then people can load that into their stories. And I think the assets are transferred to the player somehow if they don't have them. So if someone tells you a story with assets that you don't have, then they get added to your library automatically. People told hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crazy stories with this and posted them online and stuff back in the day. And most of those websites are gone now. And the difficulty here with this becoming more popular long term was that most people who try it for the first time want to have somebody tell them a story. And it's a lot of work to tell somebody a story, to set up the scenes and plan things out and create the characters and think about that ahead of time, what the space of the story is going to be. And it's also very tense and not that much fun to be the guy controlling the story, because it's oh my God, the player did something I'm not expecting. I've got 30 seconds to quickly make it happen. It's pretty engaging, but it's exhausting, right? And so most people are I just got this game. Somebody wanted to tell me a story. And so there was a disparity between the number of people willing to put in the work to create stories and tell them versus the number of people who just wanted to consume a story and be the main character in a story. And so I think it's just there's this there's a content shortage in a way, right? And some of my other games have suffered from that as well. Any kind of multiplayer thing has to deal with that kind of parity issue between either players that need to be paired up together to play each other, or how many players are needed for a match, or, are players creating content or consuming it, and that kind of thing. So that also affected the next game we can talk about, which is the Castle Doctrine, which you were asking about.
Do you have the ability to pull up Castle Doctrine?
Yes. Yes, I do.
So first of all,
I made sure to get everything compiling and running on here.
Your trailer for Castle Doctrine is incredible. You're like dead serious and like explaining you're this and this guy. Do you remember?
Yeah, so I did that trailer originally kind of talking like this. This is your house. This is your wife. These are your children. And I did that and I recorded it. And I showed the trailer to a couple of friends, and they're like, something's off on that tone, dude. It just doesn't match what you're doing. And so then I had this friend of mine who had made a bunch of videos and so on, and worked with a bunch of voice actors, and actually paid him to coach me live over Zoom as I worked on each line and the tonality of each line. And then he helped me piece it all together into like one big piece of audio. So he basically coached me as a voice actor to get that delivery better and to get the tone better and everything. And it definitely helped because I'm normally a pretty chipper, kind of goofy, laughy kind of person. And it just wasn't the right tone for explaining that game. But the crazy thing is that trailer alone, people like it so much that like several different people have tried to write full-length, feature-length movie scripts just inspired by that trailer, right?
What?
Like they play the game a little bit too or whatever. But I mean, I've got them. I've got the scripts over here. I think I've read like 3 or 4 full-length. I mean, there was production companies involved and so on. None of them ever got made, and I didn't get any money from any of them. I don't think.
Because the idea is insane. You can like tell a story about it.
But they were always like, "Dude, we saw your trailer. We flipped out. We love it." So I'm actually connecting to the real server here. Oh, and my account, my wife has already been killed in my account, and my vault is empty and everything here.
Oh,
so
yes.
This is a game that's played on a real server with real other people 24/7. So I'm going to have to commit suicide here because I've got no more resources left, and I'm going to start over with a new family. So this is my son, Andy, my wife, Darlene, and my daughter, Monica.
Generated.
I don't know my own. They're generated from a database of names that people actually had in 1993 when this game takes place. That is also age appropriate. So the wife is more likely to have a name of like a 40-year-old person from 1993, and the kids have kids' names from 1993. So yeah, her name is Darlene, but your daughter would never be named Darlene, right? Because Darlene was an old-fashioned name at that point. So Monica, I guess, was a pretty popular name for girls. So I have an empty house at first, $2,000. I've got all these different things that I can put in my house that cost different amounts of money. Walls and doors and windows and wiring and various electronic devices, power sources, some things that kind of behave almost like gates and circuits. Like these are almost like little transistors, and wire bridges and powered doors and trap doors and electric floors and even pit bulls and a cat. And I can give my wife a shotgun if I want to have her help defend the house and so on. And so anyway, I can build up this kind of defense for my family here. I'm not going to do too much of it here, but just imagine I wanted to build a simple maze that was looking a little scary. And I don't know, let me stick a pit bull on the other side of this maze. Maybe you have time to get past this, but if you come around the corner and see the pit bull, you'll think you don't have time, right? So maybe you'll see the pit bull here, and it'll be scary enough. Now, one of the things you have to do to prove that your house is a legitimate house is beat your own house without tools, without dying. And of course, you can actually die in the security of your own house. So when I hit the done button, here I am trying to basically pretend like I'm robbing my own house. And I'm using the arrow keys. It's like a roguelike. So you do turn-by-turn moves, and the world moves every time you take a step. So I come around here, peek my head out here, and I see, the pit bull sees me. Oh, but the safe is obviously right there and easily accessible. So I'm going to go back out the door and fix that because that's not a scary enough house. So I'm going to take my safe and move it a little further back, like down here.
Because the idea of the game is that you defend your house, but you want to also rob other people's houses, safes.
Yeah, we're gonna see that in a second. So I'm going to finish this. As a new player, I might not even understand what's going on. Right? So I'm just like, I come around the corner, I brave the pit bull, I come to the vault. So I can reach my vault without tools. Now that I'm done, it's loading up all of the houses that are on the server and how much money roughly they have. So these are houses created by other players and how many times people have tried to rob them and how many times people have died. And then every time someone robs your house or attempts to, they create security tapes that you can watch. You can watch step by step as they go through and rob your house. So we can look at Charles David Boyd, who no one's ever died in his house. There's only been one attempt. He's got a lot of money in there. I see right off the bat, his 2 children are right in front of the door. I see a shotgun there, which makes me nervous. There's the wife. She's coming, and she is about... Oh, oh no! So she's going to grab that shotgun, if I come take a step down, I think she has the shotgun. I think she shoots me right away. So he also has a collection of paintings. There's an auction house with different paintings that you can collect. And when you get to someone's vault, you steal all their paintings along with their money and stuff. So I think I need to go north, because if I come south, she's going to kill me right away. She picked up the shotgun. So now I'm going to peek in this door. And there's a cat there. I don't know if you can see if I move my mouse. He's right there. Now cats always run away from you.
Okay.
Chihuahuas always run toward you, trying to find you. And pit bulls, of course, run toward you and will kill you if they reach you. So you can see that cat is actually going to run and hit that switch, which electrifies all the floors. So now I can't go any further, because if I step on one of those floors, I'm going to be dead. So I'll come back out.
Every house is robbable, right? Like, but you need to do it.
Every house has to. He got through it without tools.
Yeah.
So let's look at the next house down on the list just for variety. Stephen Randall Shepard's house. Okay, here we are. Now, as people rob other people, they get more money. And as they get more money, they can spend it on more elaborate houses, right? But they're also... Oh, crap, there's a pit bull. So he's going to chase me out of the house unless I could potentially go up and go a different direction. Let's see. So my house has been all right so far. We can look at the auction house and see all the paintings. So I had a bunch of independent gaming friends make paintings for these. So let's see. See if we can find somebody that you'll recognize. Oh, yeah, you're going to love this because you've interviewed this guy. Nope, that's not it. Where is it? Hope somebody doesn't have it.
Who's going to be?
Jonathan Blow did not make one.
Okay.
These are by Phil Fish.
The notorious developer Phil Fish.
Whose butt do you think this is?
Uh-oh.
This one that it's a real photograph.
Oh, really?
Which game developer have you interviewed who'd be most likely to do something like this?
Edmund Macmillan.
Yes. I said, Edmund, can you make, because he makes artwork, all this amazing stuff all the time. I was like, make a little pixel art painting for the Castle Doctrine. And this is the only thing he delivered. Real art by Edmund Macmillan. And he was like, well, I've got a lot of my fans are begging to see the picture of this. This is by Adam Saltzman. I wonder if you know who that is. He made Cannabolt. This little, that was probably his most famous game. It's this game where we're running around the tops of buildings. It's a one-button game where you jump and go through windows and so on. Later on made a game called Overland. Anyway, there's quite a few in here. This is David Goyer. I've got one from American McGee. Do you know who that is?
No.
He used to work for id Software way, way back in the day, and then he made all these Alice games for Electronic Arts back in the day. American McGee's Alice. It's like these horror games that you play Alice in Wonderland in a kind of a twisted, dark fairy tale kind of thing.
I mostly stay away from horror games.
You guys you're too young. You're too young.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, yeah. So those are the paintings, and so let's see if we can actually rob a house very quickly before we move on to something else. Let's see. Pick an easier one. Oh, some of them they kind of get put back on the list just to populate the list after they've been robbed successfully. So I think this one looks like it's been
demolished.
So I'm just kind of going through looking for any money that's left in the vault. I'm going to just take whatever's in here. It's going to tell me what I got. I got $910 and a brick.
That's the easiest $910 you've ever had. Come on. Walk in the park.
So now I've got more money to work on my house and so on. But of course, as you build up a bigger house and it gets crazier and crazier and you put more effort into it, then you're much less likely to go out and rob other people because, of course, you can die, right? Like if I go and like make a mistake, like this guy's house is hard. Go and make a mistake in here. Come down here. She just shot me. I was killed by Dorothy's shotgun, right? I just had to accept what just happened. And then, I accept. Well, it's just, I have to do it. I'm dead, right? So it's permadeath, right? So now I'm starting over from scratch. Actually, some money that I have, I think, like there's a bounty that gets added for each person who dies in your house. So that also helps you. If you make a really hard house that kills a lot of people, it helps you kind of build up wealth there, right? And of course, then you got to keep coming in to protect it by adding extra stuff to keep protecting it.
Yeah, you become
everyone's coming after you, right?
An easy target.
Yeah. So that's the Castle Doctrine. And so I guess, do we want to talk briefly about 1 Hour on Life?
Before that, there's Cordial Minuet.
So this is a game that was played for real money. This came out in...
It's crazy.
So you deposit when you don't buy the game is free, but when you download it, you basically have this, when you first start it up, basically you see this credit card deposit screen that talks about how much you want to deposit, and you literally type your credit card number into the game. which is a pretty crazy thing to be doing at the time. And it's well encrypted and well engineered and so on. I think Stripe or Square is processing the payments for it. But there's not any limit to, well, there's a limit just how many digits you have here. But you can deposit up to $999,000 at a time. And it tells you what your credit card fee is going to be because that's actually taken out of the amount you deposit, right? So if you deposit $5, 45 cents is taken out by the credit card processor. And then there's actually also no limit to when you go to play a game. Let's say I create a new game here. I could set whatever stakes I want, including my whole balance if I want. Like I can play a $44 game. But if I had deposited thousands of dollars, I could play a game for, that much. Or I could play a game for as little as 1 penny, right? And that was the thing. I was like, yeah, but you could play 1 penny games against people.
And
so I'll create a 1 penny game right now.
And the other player needs to match your bet, right?
Yeah, they need to match the buy-in. There it is. So there's my 1 penny game that showed up here. And I'm going to join. Okay. So audio is not working so great when I'm just going to turn it down. There's some chimes and stuff that play, but it's not working so great when I have 2 of them playing it in parallel. And so in this game, you're both seeing the same board you'll see here. Normally, you only see one half of this and you don't see what the other person's looking at. But you can see that their rows are your columns. So here is 18, 31, 6, 26, 1, 29. And that's one of their columns right here, right? And so you're green and they see themselves as green and they see you as red. So you see them as red. You see, your colors are reversed for each other. And you're picking a column for yourself and a column for them. And then committing. And so that you can see it draws like color on my column and draws red on their column. So now that first move has been done, they picked this row for me, and that's the number that I got out of it.
16.
And all I know is they didn't get 13 points. I don't know what row they picked for themselves. So they could have gotten 8, 36, 17, 11, or 26. What did they actually get? Over here we can see they actually got 11, right? Because I gave them this and they must have picked this one. But I normally wouldn't be able to see. Like I'm normally not be able to see what they're getting, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, now between each round, just like in Texas Hold'em poker, there's 3 rounds of picking until all the rows and columns have been picked. We get to bet. And we're betting here. We all start with 100 chips. And that's, in this case, it's 100th of a penny each chip, right? So let's say I bet 2 and he bets 1. And then it comes back to him and it says, oh, dude, the other guy bet 2. Do you want to fold or do you want to match his bet? Or you can raise it even higher if you want. So he raises it up to 3 and I have the option to fold and I'm just going to call his bet at 3. So now the pot is a total of 4. And now we're picking the next row and column given what's left. And I wouldn't know that this row here is actually gone because that's what he gave himself in secret. So I commit that. He also doesn't know. He doesn't know that 28 is gone. So he doesn't know that this... Wait, what does he not know? He does not know that 23... Yeah, so where's 23? I'm having trouble seeing it here. Anyways, he's making choices here for me and him again. And he commits. And then we get to see what happens. So in this case, I lucked out. I got 30. The highest number on this board is 36. And in this case, he got 24 and 11. So I'm beating him, but I don't necessarily know that for sure. And this little graph, if you can see this over here on the side, is showing what possible scores he thinks I could have, given the information I think he has about me, this little green line. These little green dots are what scores I could actually have by the end of the game, given what squares are left. And these are what scores I think he could have.
And
right?
score
so this is giving you
all
a little
the
bit,
points. So 16 plus 30
all
plus
the points.
More.
So I currently have 46.
Yeah,
you see that? And he currently has 35.
He
and so, of course, we have another round of betting.
He sucks, man.
Well, yeah, we have another round of betting. Let's say we just match our bets and there's nothing else. We don't have to, there's no calling or raising. And then we have the last round here. And I could look at this and say, well, this has a 3 and a 5 in it, but also a 35 and 18. This one has 3 high numbers in it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give myself the one with 3 high numbers in it. He probably wants this one with 3 high numbers in it, so I'll give that to himself. And then give this to me.
But this has 2 high numbers, so it's not. It has 26 as well, right?
So, oh boy, what did he stick me with? He stuck me with a not. I got 29. Wow, that's pretty great. So I have 75, which is like a monster score. I stuck him with a 5. And of course, now at this point, he can look, I think, and see. I think he can see he's very likely sunk here. He sees that I have these scores here. He knows he has a 40. And there's only 2 scores down here that I could possibly have that are worse than him and 4 scores that are above him. And so now we're making our bets. And, in this case, I would probably bet like 10 or something. I can see that I'm guaranteed to have a higher score than anything he could possibly have. Like my score is up here at 75 and his possible scores are 67 through 30 to 29. So I know I'm winning. It's basically like I've got like aces full or something, and I know he can't have it.
How much money you can actually extract from him now.
So I bet 10, and of course in this situation he'd probably look at this and be like, gulp.
Yeah.
He's probably got me beat, so he would fold. And in that case the whole pot comes back to me, and then we keep playing. And the ante goes up every round to an extra chip. So now we put in
playing as one player until one player runs out of the chips. Like entirely?
Or one player decides to leave, and then I think there's a penalty for leaving as well. So yeah, and there's a new board every time. These boards are actually special. These are magic squares. So every row and every column here sums up to 111. And so there's a solver that solves to make sure that the numbers are from 1 to 36. And so you can look at them carefully here and see that it's actually true. But every row and every column sums to 111. So there's not really one row or column that's better than the other. That's part of what makes the game work. It's not like there's necessarily an obvious choice here. Sometimes there are some that are more balanced. Sometimes there are some that are riskier, right? Like this one has 1, 3 on it, but also has 34 and 36, right? Yeah. Whereas like this one has a bunch of even numbers, nothing very, very high, and the lowest is 9, right? So it's like, do I want to give this one to myself and hope that I get a 36? But anyway, these squares, let me quickly make another one just so we can just look at the square again. So these squares are actually an important part of like the history of like demonology and so on. So this game is actually kind of a demon summoning ritual along with this gambling game.
Nice.
And so this is the square of the sun. And so if you take like 111 and there's 6 rows that are 111, I'll let you do the math. What's the total number if you add up all the numbers on this square?
Nice.
Yes, that's where that number comes from.
Really?
It comes from this magic square, yeah.
Okay.
And so when I discovered that when I was doing this research for this game, I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And then it also allows you to have 3 moves each, kind of like Texas Hold'em, where there's like the flop, the turn, and the river.
Il Mondo and L'Abisso. It's like Abyss and the World.
Yes, yes. Those are also kind of things from like tarot and so on. And there's all kinds of like Hebrew numerology in here and everything. This is a demonic sigil for the demon Minnesons, who's the demon that controls winning at games. So yeah, anyway, I think the biggest game that was ever played one game was played at one point for a couple $1,000 just for one game.
Oh, wow.
I think maybe it was $6,000 in one game. And so, yeah, there's a lot of money. I think $75,000 total passed through the game in the time when people are actively playing it. There's quite a little community of people who got really into it and were playing it a lot. And someone wrote a bot for it eventually. And there were some tournaments I was running and everything. And I never got in trouble with the law. I was very careful to say, there's no random elements in this game aside from the choices that the players make. So, it's according to all gambling laws I can find. This is the game of skill. Yeah. Even though you can play it for close to $1 million if you want to.
Nice. I think.
But, so that's Cordial Minuet.
I think if there were a game for $1 million, then you would have some trouble.
Oh, you think so? Maybe in the European Union I'd have trouble.
Yeah. For the closing section of this one, can you come back to the view with you, and then tell me?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I keep forgetting.
Tell me, like as a closing statement, where people can follow your work and you.
Yeah, I guess the easiest place to find me is Jason Rohrer, JASONROHRER. I'm on Twitter under that name. And if you do a Google search for my name, Jason Rohrer, ROHRER, you'll find all kinds of stuff about me, including my homepage and so on. So that's the best way to keep up.
Nice HTML.
And yeah, I currently have 3 games on Steam: Castle Doctrine, Inside Starfield Sky, and 1 Hour in Life. And so, of course, you can just search for those on Steam to find those. And
Jason will come back for another episode to discuss 1 Hour 1 Life.
Yes, thank you. This was fun.
Some vitamin. Nice. Thank you so much, Jason.
Yes, thank you.